everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video we're gonna make a blanket coat, and I got many questions when I made my video last year of my coat collection, in which I showed you my coats that are made out of a blanket, literally. And I got many questions if I could do a tutorial about that. So I thought, well, now at fall I will make a new blanket coat. So I bought a nice blanket at a very cheap store here in the Holland. And make sure your blanket is lined, because we make a lined coat, and that sounds very difficult, but it's very easy because we just treat the two layers as one. So you just sew one garment, not lining and then put it in and all the difficult things when you have to line something. This is very easy because we just treat it as one. So I'll explain when we do it, but it's very nice and very easy to do. So this blanket was €9, so really not expensive if you get a whole coat out of it. Try to find a blanket as large as you can, because then you can make your coat longer. I hope I can make mine like half thigh length. I don't know if I have enough, but mine is 180 by a meter, I think. So it's a lot of fabric, so I hope I can make it long. So try to get a blanket as big as you can. As you see, I'm still filming here, but I'm not sure how to film, what angle, what kind to shoot. And I put my fabrics that I already have for fall here on my rack. I don't know if it is something, but then maybe you can get a glimpse already of the fabrics that I have. I have my faux leather down here. I put it on the wall so that I don't get wrinkles. So maybe it's nice to see what fabrics I have for the future. Maybe it's way too difficult to see with all these colors and so. I don't know. I'm not sure about the setup here, but I'm always trying to find a way to film in this room, because it's a very nice room for me. So we'll go on with the coat, and if you like this kind of videos, please consider subscribing. We're growing, and it's nice to have a little family that can help each other out. If you have a question, put it down below. I will answer it, or someone else will answer it, or someone will come with a suggestion, and it's very nice to learn from each other. So please consider subscribing. And now let's go on to the pattern for this coat. So I made a small drawing of what we're gonna make. I'm really bad at drawing, so it's just a thing to show. There's not really much to see. We have buttons in the front. We have, I didn't draw that right, a standing collar, and I show you when we make the pattern. Just plain sleeves, so it's really plain design, but just to show you somewhat how it's gonna be. And then we're gonna make the pattern, and as always we use the basic top pattern. And if you don't have that yet, I will link down below in the description box the tutorial how you can make this basic pattern to your own sizing. And you have to make it once, and then you can use it over and over and over again, because every time we make something for the top or a coat or a dress, we use this same basic pattern. So it's now it costs you some time to make it, but then you can use it for the rest of your life, literally. So we're going to use that, and then we're going to draw the back part for the coat. And that means that we take our basic pattern, put it on a new piece of paper, and then we're gonna adjust it a little bit so that it is not more a top but a coat. And that means that the top is of course the same, the neckline, the shoulder line, but the armhole I made deeper, more down, because then you have more room here for your sweater or whatever you have to wear underneath your coat. And also of course here the cinching at the waist, you don't need it and you don't want it for a coat. You want the coat to be wider. So I made it here the armhole around 4 centimeters lower, and then around 4 centimeters wider. And I just draw the line almost straight down, a little bit going out here, so that I have more room all along the waistline. So make it just straight from your armhole, around 4 centimeters extra than your basic top was. And then I made it ideally 80 centimeters long, but I don't know if I have enough fabric for this. But I made my pattern ideally, and then I'll see how much fabric I have from the blanket, how much I can use for this. So this is your back pattern. Then for the front, we use that same basic pattern, but then the front part, again we line it up. But now for the front we also need the extra piece for the button row. So we add 4 centimeters to the mid front, so that we can make the overlap for the buttons. Again, the same here, 4 centimeters down, 4 centimeters more wide to the side, and then just going straight down, not with the waist cinched in. And then for the collar, that is something different, because what we're gonna make is we're gonna make the collar attached to the back, because we must make sure that our lining will be finished nicely, because we do it in the same row as the outer fabric, because the lining and the fabric will be attached together, because we want to make this very simple. If you have them separately, you can make any color, but in this way you will see why I make it like this. Then it's very easy to do it and have it nicely finished. So what I did is I measured how wide my back neckline is. So that is this part, this curve, that is 7 centimeters, and that 7 centimeters I want to add to the shoulder and the front of the front part. So this is the 7 centimeters that I want to add, because we're gonna sew this on that back neckline, because it's gonna be like this, you see. And then this is your standing collar that is attached to your back pattern on that side. So this must be the same length as the width of your back collar. Then you can make it as wide as you want. I don't want it too high. Mine is now 5 centimeters, because otherwise you have the collar very high in your neck and that doesn't feel very nicely. And then you curve it down to your mid front part, or the overlap front part. So that will be your front pattern. And then for the sleeve, what you do is you, oh, I don't need my basic pattern anymore. Take just the front one, or the back, doesn't matter. You measure how wide your armhole is, and I showed you before, you just do that by taking your measuring tape and lay that along that line, like this. And that is 27 centimeters, and it's the same 27 centimeters you need for the arm, the sleeve top part. So you can just put it in a curve on a piece of paper, somewhat a curve, it doesn't really matter, as long as this is 27 centimeters. So from here to here must be 27 centimeters, so half the sleeve. And the higher you make this head of the sleeve, the more it folds nicely down. If you don't want if you want a more flat sleeve, you can make it lower, but because this is a water heavy fabric, you need some room for your shoulder, and then a curve like this, and when you open it up you can see it even more. A curve with this high, a head with this height is the nicest for a coat like this, for a sleeve like this. And if you make a sweater or something, you can make it lower, but now you really need a nice curve. So it doesn't really it doesn't have to be precise. When you make a blazer or something, it really has to be precise. Now it doesn't really matter. So put your measuring tape just in a nice curve, and then draw it, and then mirror it to the other side, and you have your sleeve. Measure how long you need your sleeve to be, and measure how wide you need your sleeve to be on the bottom. And you just do that by putting your measuring tape along your wrist, and then see how wide you want it to be. Mine is 13 centimeters, so all the way around 26 centimeters. So that will be your sleeve on the hole. And then we're gonna put it on our blanket, and I'll show you how my blanket looks. You saw it already in the intro, but I want to show you better. It's lined, of course. The outside is nice and brown and flat. The inside is more fluffy. You can also use this as the outside, this as the inside, whatever you like. But make sure your blanket is nicely lined. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this whole blanket is just one fabric floss from now. So we put the pattern on this, and then we pin them together, these two fabrics. So it is now the lining. It will be the lining, but we use it just as one piece of fabric. And then we make French seams, and I show you from on the coat that I already made what it is. That means that you make your seams first by putting the right sides together, and then flipping it out, inside out, outside out, and then you sew it with the wrong sides together, and then you get a really nicely finished seam without having any difficulties to do. And then you can use your fabric and your lining together, and still you have nicely finished seams with not having to line it and then flip it in and sew it together and all the things that you have to do when you normally line a fabric. So that's what we're going to do with the French seams. If you're not familiar with French seams, I will link down below my tutorial how to do that, and I will explain it of course now in this tutorial how to do it. But if you want to get it to know more in depth, then watch that tutorial first. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our blankets, and we try to place our patterns as good as possible on the blanket. And your only problem now is normally you have your fabric together, so you have your pattern for left and right in one row. Now we have to place every pattern solely. So you need the left one for the front and the right one for the front. So you really must pin it out that you have enough fabric, and not that you have later on just one front part instead of two, because normally when you cut it out then you have two. So I'm gonna lay it out on the floor and then see how I can use the most out of my fabric. So what you do, I don't know if you can see it, but my blanket has a top stitch all the way around, and we're gonna place our pattern with the part that has to be seamed, or what it has the hem, so the bottom of the front and the back part and the bottom of the sleeve. We're gonna align that with the side of our blanket, because then this is already hemmed and this is finished, so that's nice. So we align that with the side of your fabric. Then you pin your pattern to the blanket as you normally would do, but also you pin it around, so on the outside of your pattern. And it is because then you secure the outer fabric to the lining, because when you cut it out you want these two pieces to stay together, because we treat them as one. So you pin it all the way around your pattern before you cut it out, and you cut it out outside of the pins. And you do that for all your pieces like that. And the most important thing is that you try to put the pieces that you don't have to sew together. So you have to sew the side seams, and that can be just on a cutted edge, but the hem lines you try always to place them on the hem of your blanket. So when I've cut it out, I will show you how that looks. Well, I was laying my pattern on the blanket, and it turns out that I have much enough blanket for my coat, because this left one is the front part that I put on the seam here, and the same one, and on the seam here on the side, because then I don't have to finish the mid front and I don't have to finish the hemline, and I can put that on the other corner too. Then this one is the mid part that I can mirror also here on the hem, and then you see I have enough now for the other front part there, and then my sleeves I can put on top, and then I have enough left. So I think if you have even a smaller blanket than this one was 180 by 140. If I count it out, I think you can also do it when your blanket is 140 by 140, or maybe even 140 by 120, but I'm not sure about that. But this one, 180 by 140, is plenty of blankets to make this coat out of. So I'm very happy that I can also make the length that I wanted. So I'm gonna cut this out, and I wanted to show you because I wanted to make a drawing of how I did it, but now I can show you that it's really not difficult to put it on. I knew with my other blanket coat I really had to puzzle how I could get it on, but in this size it is very easy. So now we have all our pieces. The left front, the right front, the back is underneath here, and then two sleeves, and I also could cut two pockets just from the outside material. And I have still all my pins here all the way around. Leave the pins in until you have sewn the parts together. So now we're going to sew, and first we're going to start with the shoulder seams, and you're going to sew the shoulder seams one sides together. So with the insides facing each other. You're going to sew that, and then cut the fuss on the outside off as much as you can. So the seam allowance you cut off as much as you can, and then you flip it over right sides together as you normally would sew. And then you sew that part as close as you can to that seam. So normally it will be around 1 centimeter, 1.5 centimeters. So that's why I also put some more seam allowance on the seams as normal. Normally I take 1 centimeter, now I take 2 or 2.5, because you need more for the seam, especially when you have this thick fabric. So do that for the shoulder seams. And then we're gonna sew in the sleeves into the armholes. And again, first one sides together, and then you flip it over right sides together. So you do first the sleeve into the armhole, and then we're going to do the sleeve seam and the side seam together. But that's for the next step. First we're going to start with this. And as you have noticed, it is fluff everywhere. So have your vacuum by hand if you have somewhat the same fabric as I have, because you will find it everywhere in your home. And when you have your vacuum here, you can vacuum the seams and the seam allowances, and you can vacuum everything. You look here, it's full of fluff everywhere and it flows around. So make sure you have your vacuum on hand to get it away, because it gets very annoying otherwise. Pin in the sleeve in the armhole, one sides together, then cut the seam allowance off, and then flip it over right sides together and sew that down. So when you have sewn the sleeves in the armhole, now you're going to sew the side seams, and then in the same row the sleeve seam. And you start just the same, one sides together, then flip it over and right sides together. You do that for the two sides of the coat. We have the whole coat together. Now we're going to finish the collar. And what you have is you have these two pieces sticking out in the mid front. This one and this one, left and right. And now we have to take them separately. So the outer fabric and the lining we have to take solely. Otherwise you cannot finish this nicely. So what you're going to do is you take your pins out. I had still my pins in. And then you're going to finish this front part. So the mid front that is connected to the mid front here. And then you're going to flip them over. Whatever you see, mine is connected here by a stitch. So I have to open that up. And then you can flip it over that the white sides are together. So I cannot show you now because I have to seam rip this first. But maybe otherwise, no, the other one is the same. So you make sure that you can take the right sides together, and then you're going to sew this whole part from the neckline down to the mid front. So I seam with my seam so I can show you now how to do it. See if you can, what side it's nicest to flip it over. I think I go that way, or you can go this way. This way will even be even nicer, I think. Yes, this is the best way. So you take just the two parts together and you pin them, and you make sure you can pin them all the way. No, I flipped it too much. You pin them all the way to the other side. You go here, you can go all the way up. So you just pin them normally like you would with the one sides together this time. You pin them all the way up, like I just told you, this whole seam. So now you have the both mid-fronts, a nice straight line into the collar, left and right. Looks very nice. And if you struggle with this, just fold it open as far as you can. You can just fold it inside out till halfway here. Just push it out, and then you can make a nice straight line going all the way up to the end. And now what we're going to do is we're going to sew the mid-back seam, and that is these two should attach. So you put them together, right sides together now, and you sew them nicely with the seams aligned. You pin them and then you sew them, and this is your mid-back seam. So that is the seam that you have in the mid of your neck. And that is where the both collars from the left and the right front are attached. So you're going to sew that one, and then when you flip it over, you have your back attached, and then I'll come back for how we're going to attach it to the back neck hole. This, when you flip it over, you immediately see how it's gonna be. You see it just lays down to that part that is still open. So what you do, you can sew it together, but you cannot sew it in a French seam. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pin first the outer fabric together, and then by hand I'm gonna sew the inner fabric together, because then you can nicely finish this edge. So just pin the outer fabric first, and then do the inner lining. So very easy, and then you have really nicely attached this ongoing collar, and you see it's not that difficult to do. And then your whole coat is really nicely finished with no raw edges or whatever. It is fully lined without the fuss of making a lining. So sew that on, and then the only thing you have to do is put your buttons on. My fabric is very thick, and I have a heavy duty sewing machine, but it doesn't like this kind of fabric to make buttonholes in. So maybe I'm gonna make the buttonholes by hand. You can try if your sewing machine can do it. Otherwise, just cut a hole with a seam ripper and do it by hand with some embroidery floss. Then usually you get a nicer buttonhole than when you do this thick of fabric, because it's two thick pieces with your sewing machine. And then your coat is finished. Oh no, we have to put on our pockets. And the strange thing is, I showed you that I already had pockets cut out, but I cannot find them anywhere. So I'm gonna see if I have enough fabric left to make a pocket, and I think that then will be a rectangular, because for that curved one I certainly don't have enough. So if you want to make pockets, cut them out, whatever you like, sew them on, and then you will see me back if I had enough for pockets, or if my coat don't have pockets anymore. And make sure when you sew this outer fabric together that you put your pins exactly till the seam here, because this is double stitched with your French seam, and now you have a single stitching. So make sure you pin exactly till your seam, and also now sew exactly till that same seam. Then you have a nicely finished curve. The inside you can just do whatever you like, but this is very important, otherwise you get a strange hump here, and that doesn't look good. Here's the coat. Nice and warm. I like that I have this high neck now. And I like that it got really long. It's really almost to my knees. And I really wanted that because my former coat that I made out of a blanket was just almost high waist. And that's nice, but that's not really warm when it's really cold. And this is such a thick coat that you really can have cold weather to wear it. And I think it turns out really nice. And you saw it is very easy to make with the lining because you don't have to worry about the lining. The only struggle that I had is I wanted to sew the pockets on with my sewing machine and it didn't work out. I tried it 4 times, but the stitching wasn't nice because it was skipping, or it got on an angle on the fabric. I don't know, I had all kinds of trouble, so finally I just put them on by hand. But on the other hand, my buttonholes went very easy with my sewing machine. I just tried one and it was no problem at all, so I made the buttonholes with my sewing machine. So that's really a nice thing, because that's a lot of work when you have to do it by hand. But maybe you see something strange, because I didn't have to, but I like it more to put the overlap left over right. And normally for women it is right over left. But when I unbutton it, you can see that the edge of the patterns, because I just had to work with the edge of my blanket because we didn't sew it ourselves. This is very nice and clean, you see. And this one has a lot of the lining coming out, and I didn't really like it when that was on the outside. So it's not really bothering, but I rather like it when you don't see the lining from the outside. So I decided to put the overlap like this, and most people don't notice it or don't even know it at all. So I just did it like this, and I have really fun, really nice buttons. I'll try to see if I can give you a close-up. It's a bit like, it's very bright here, a bit like a shell, and it's a flower. And it's really nice. The woman in the shop said, well, I don't think it's nice with that coat and it's a fur, so you shouldn't make that delicate buttons, but I really like how it looks. And it's just a preference what you like for buttons. Everyone wants different buttons, but I really like this one. And I really like this coat. It's really nice and fluffy, and you wouldn't tell that it was made out of a blanket, and you also wouldn't tell that you made it yourself, because it really looks very, very nice. And the only tip that I want to give you is check that you have taken out all your pins, because when I tried it on, I still found 4 pins sticking out somewhere, because you have your double layer, you had all the pins all around. When you pin it together, sometimes you don't see the pins anymore. So check your coat, because you won't be the first one that goes outside with the coat and feels, ooh, there's a pin sticking out here. So check your coat before you put it on. So I hope you liked this tutorial. I really want to say this was an easy one, because I think it was. It didn't cost me more than 10 euros, even less than 10 euros. So you can really make a nice faux fur coat by yourself for less than 10 euros with this result. So what else do you want? I don't want to buy a faux fur coat in the shop for 50 euros when I can make it myself like this. And it isn't really work at all, and it looks so very much nice as you had by it. So I hope you liked this tutorial. I'll see you again next week for another one. It will be a sewing one, but it won't be a fashion one, so here is what it will be. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe, please share them, please give me a comment what you like me to make next. I'm reaching almost 1000 subscribers, and I'm almost reaching also my 100th video, so I want to do something special then. And I thought maybe if you give me some suggestions what you want me to make, send me a picture on Instagram, DM me a picture, and I can recreate what you want me to make. And I'll try to give me the things that you like in it. Is it the fabric, is it the color, the things that you like in the garment that you would like me to recreate, and I'll try to recreate your garment. So please send me some pictures if you like me to do that for my 100th video or for my 1000 subscribers. Which one is the first, we will see. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next Monday. Bye!